I walked in and heard her laughing into the phone in that soft, careful way she keeps for people she likes. The moment the front door clicked, the tone vanished. Chairs scraped. A fake cough. Then her voice, too bright. Oops, wrong number. Sorry. She hung up like the stove was on fire. Wrong number that knows your middle name? I set the grocery bags on the counter. Luck of the draw. Yeah. Erin waved a hand without looking at me. Telemarketer. They're getting creative. They're getting personal. I watched her put the same mug back in the cabinet twice, like she needed to reset the scene. She smiled thin. You're late. Traffic? Not really. I took my time with the receipt. Call back and tell them they missed. It's nothing, Mark. She brushed past me, too light on her feet. Let's not make a thing. If I'd known where that tone was headed, I'd have kept the groceries in the car and driven until the road ran out. The first week after that, she was a perfect spouse out of a sitcom. Dinners plated before I asked. Laundry folded without the usual bargaining. She laughed at my stupid office stories, on cue. And never once did she sit against me on the couch. Her hand on my shoulder lasted 2 seconds and felt like she was checking if I had a fever. At night, she turned early, back to me, phone face down on the nightstand like a guard dog. At breakfast one morning, she slid a sealed envelope toward me. Gym membership renewal. I covered it. Thanks. I looked at her, not the envelope. Nice to be invested in. She blew on her coffee, though it wasn't hot. You should take care of yourself. Taking care is a team sport. She didn't rise to it. You working late? Why? Just planning my evening. She gave me a smile that didn't reach any muscle that counts. Yoga with Kara. I lifted an eyebrow. Kara's husband texted you yesterday. She blinked once. He asked what to get her for her birthday. Her birthday's in 6 months. You remember dates now? The smile sharpened. That's new. I remember friends' dates. Helps with respect. I got up, rinsed my plate. You should give him my number if he needs a male perspective. He won't. She collected the dishes like I'd spilled something. I didn't push. Pushing gets you noise. I prefer results. I made one call. To a quiet guy named Dalton I'd used once for a work matter when a supplier kept losing deliveries. Dalton's not dramatic. He confirms facts. No speeches. Cash, report, done. At work, Mike from IT slid into my office with a grin that always precedes something dumb. Boss, big guy. Guess who I saw at Urban Spoon yesterday? 2 booths behind the big potted plant pretending to be a forest. I didn't flinch. Surprise me. Your better half. Looked great. She was with not Kara. He scratched his beard. Tall dude. Blue blazer. Expensive watch. The man laughs with his whole mouth, you know. I kept my eyes on the spreadsheet. Did she see you? Pretty sure. I waved, but she turned like she didn't expect outsiders in a restaurant. He hesitated. Maybe I'm wrong. You're not. I closed the laptop. Do me a favor. Don't wave next time. No problem. He leaned on the door frame. You good? I'm precise. I reached for my phone. That's my hobby now. At home, I adjusted the map. Rule 1 time. If Erin was on her own schedule, I would be on mine, publicly. I started staying late at the shop on Tuesdays and Thursdays, with receipts and time-stamped emails to match. I moved my morning runs earlier and kept the guest room made up, then slept there without announcement the first night, putting my phone and wallet into a lockbox in the closet. No speech, just the new floor plan. She noticed at breakfast. Why the guest room? Better sleep, I said. I like clear edges. Edges. She stared like she was deciding if I was joking. Are we okay? We're honest, I answered. And if we're not, we'll be organized. That night, she came home with takeout from a place we like. Thought you might want your favorite. I do. I set the table. Nice of you. She touched my arm, light, then withdrew. I'm sorry I've been distant. Work's heavy. I don't mean to be off. You're on whichever station you want. I looked at her, simple. Thanks for dinner. For 10 minutes we ate like normal people. She asked about a client. I teased her about her indoor plants dying again. She laughed, a real laugh this time, and the room warmed. When I reached for her hand just to see if that bridge still existed, she pulled back to adjust a napkin that didn't need adjusting. The warmth evaporated. She saw I saw. Then she leaned in, overcorrecting, and kissed my cheek like a new neighbor bringing a pie. I'll do better, she said, soft. I nodded. I'll hold you to that. New rule, quietly added. No joint accounts for extra purchases. I split our discretionary budget. I opened a separate card for my expenses and left the shared one for bills, groceries, and essentials. I emailed her the spreadsheet. Transparency, I wrote in the subject. No accusation in the body, just numbers. Her reply popped back in 3 minutes. I didn't ask for this. I answered, I did. The next day, Dalton texted a single line mid-morning. Update at 7. No drama. No emojis. Clean. I kept my head down at work. Mike poked his head in again. You sure you're good? I'm sure I'm not guessing. At 7, Dalton's envelope sat on the passenger seat like it weighed 20 pounds. He stood by his sedan and gave me a nod, then left. No handshake. No talk. Inside the envelope, dates, times, 2 restaurants I know too well, a park bench anyone would recognize, and a cheap motel off the highway that people pretend is for road trippers and not for lies. Photos. Clean angles. Her smile wide in daylight. His hand placed like they'd rehearsed it. The two of them moving like a unit. Walking into the motel lobby close enough to be one person. Later, her head on his shoulder in the diner. That lazy posture you save for someone who's earned it. The name on Dalton's summary matched the husband of Kara, her best friend since college. The same guy who, by the story, needed tips for a birthday 6 months out. The watch on his wrist in the photo could pay our property taxes. He looked like a man who thought the rules didn't apply in his zip code. I stared at the pictures in my truck until the streetlights buzzed on. I didn't rage. I counted. Times. Patterns. Cross-checked against the innocuous yoga nights, the wrong number laughs that don't make a thing. The math was tidy. There was only one exit that didn't involve groveling or a fist fight. Paper. Distance. And a last conversation, not to beg, not to debate, but to mark the edge. The next morning, I left the house at 6 without slamming any doors. The county building opened at 8. I was there at 7:50 with a coffee that tasted like cardboard. I sat with a pen and filled what needed filling. The clerk didn't care about romance. She cared that I signed on the correct lines. I did. I left feeling lighter, not happier. Clarity isn't joy, it's clean air. I texted Erin at noon. Home at 6. Need to talk. She didn't answer. I didn't send a second text. At 6, I walked into a quiet house. No car in the driveway. I set my keys down and waited. At 6:15, I sent one line. Where are you? We need to talk tonight. At 6:45, my phone buzzed. I'm with a friend. Coffee. Late night. Tomorrow's better. I stood by the kitchen window, looked at our maple in the front yard, and typed to Kara. We were friendly, not close, but real enough to be direct. Is Erin with you? The typing dots appeared, vanished, returned. No. I'm home. Making dinner. What? I sent 3 photos. Not the worst ones. Enough. Kara, is this a sick joke? I replied, I wish. Then I wrote to Erin. Ask him if his wife liked the new photos. She didn't answer. Kara did. 2 minutes of typing. I'm shaking. He's on his way home. I'm going to be here when he walks in. What are you doing? Packing what's mine, I sent. You'll hear from me later. At 7:30, the front door opened like it had been kicked by a storm. Erin rushed in, hair tied back, face pale, phone in hand. What did you do? I sat at the dining table with my hands folded. Calm as free. I ended a lie. You sent her. She set her bag down too hard. Do you understand what you did to my friendship? Your friendship was already organized around something else. I tilted my head. Sit. Don't talk to me like a suspect. She didn't sit. She paced, then spun. Those photos, who was following me? That's illegal. It's not. I slid the envelope across the table. I wanted the truth. I got it. Those are out of context. She didn't touch the envelope. That motel? We were meeting someone about a project. Right. I let it hang. Do they rent rooms by the hour for project meetings now? She went for righteous. You invaded my privacy. You burned our trust. I rose and pushed the envelope back to my side. You turned our house into a waiting room. You're twisting this. She shook her head. I was confused. I needed space. You took space. I pointed to the guest room door. I gave it to you the clean way. You chose the cheap way. I never. She caught herself and went quieter. You've been distant too. I set boundaries. That's not distance. That's respect. She stared at me like if she focused hard enough, she could erase my face. You're really going to blow up our life over some photos? No. You blew it up. I'm picking up the pieces. I kept my voice even. I filed this morning. Her mouth opened. Nothing came out at first. You what? I filed. I didn't repeat it with heat. I'll send you what you need. You'll be fine. Fine. She laughed, small and ugly. You just humiliated me in front of my closest friend. Your actions did that. I forwarded the mail. I checked my watch, not for effect, but because schedules matter. You can stay somewhere else tonight. Where? The word came out half scoff, half challenge, like she expected the old me to back down. Where you've been practicing. I nodded at her phone. Or anywhere else. Parents. Hotel. Your call. She tried a different key. Softer. She stepped closer, hands open. Mark. I'm sorry. I've been under pressure. I didn't mean to hurt you. Intent doesn't rebuild, Aaron. I took a breath. I'm not angry. I'm done. That's when the doorbell rang. Kara walked in without waiting to be invited, because she had earned a pass tonight. She looked like someone had cut a string inside her. She held her keys like a weapon, then saw me and relaxed a fraction. I saw them. Aaron turned to her like a child who realizes the teacher saw the cheat sheet. Kara, it's not. Save it. Kara's voice had no tremor. He's packing. He doesn't have a right to the house. I told him to leave the keys and go find a couch. I wanted to be here when you got home. You came here to yell at me in front of my husband? Aaron's eyebrows shot up. Real classy. Kara didn't match the sarcasm. I came to see the person who looked me in the eye last week and told me I overthink everything. Aaron pivoted back to me. You set this up. I exposed it. I leaned against the table. And if you want to know why I didn't confront you first, it's because I prefer facts to theater. Aaron turned on the tears without tears. Mark, please. We can fix this. We can't. I checked the time again. You should start packing for tonight. She went cold. If you think you can just. I don't think. I pointed calmly toward the hallway. Clothes. Toiletries. I'll have a box ready. Kara stood there, arms folded, watching a life break. Not enjoying it. Not rescuing me. Just confirming the math. Aaron tried one more angle. The oldest. Minimize plus blame. You've been distracted for months. You work late. You sleep in the guest room. What was I supposed to think? That my schedule is my schedule, I answered. That respect doesn't expire at midnight. That if you needed more, you talk to me instead of someone who likes watches and shortcuts. She swallowed. He told me you wouldn't fight for me. He was right. I pointed at the front door. Go. She packed in 30 minutes like a woman sprinting through a storm and hoping the rain would stop if she moved fast enough. She came back down with 2 bags and a face set on defiance. This isn't over. It is here, I said. Keys. She dropped them on the table like it hurt, then paused, softer again. We built a life. I'm not tearing it down. I met her eyes until she had to look away. I'm walking out of a room that caught fire and locking the door behind me. Kara and I stood on the porch and watched Aaron drive off. She sat behind the wheel a full minute before starting the car, like she expected me to stop her. I didn't. When the taillights vanished, Kara let out a long breath. I told him to go to his brother's. He'll be loud. He thinks loud wins. Loud is cheap. I turned the porch light off. You want water? I want to know how you did that without screaming. I planned. I poured her a glass. What happened at your place? She sat at the table, fingers tied around the rim. He walked in with that grin he uses for people he thinks are below him. I showed him the photos. He said you fabricated them. She huffed something that could have been a laugh if it had any joy in it. Fabricated. Like we're in a movie. And then, I told him to leave the key, take a bag, and go figure out how to be decent somewhere else. She looked at me over the glass. I didn't cry. He kept waiting for that like it was his prize. Good. I set a small box on the table. Inside were the spare keys Aaron always pretended not to have, and some mail she'd hidden behind cookbooks because the colors were pretty. I slid it toward Kara. Want to take these? Proof of deposit on self-respect. She smiled without humor. You always talk like that. When the situation deserves it. She nodded. I'm staying with my sister tonight. I didn't want you here with her alone. I thought she'd twist it. She tried. I noticed. Kara finished her water and stood. You're okay? I'm better than I look. I walked her to the door. Text me if you need anything practical. I will. She hesitated. We'll be fine. Eventually. We already are. I locked the door after her and walked through a house that suddenly felt like a clean notebook. Not blank, just free of bad handwriting. The next morning, I changed my routine again. I told my staff I'd be out in the afternoons for the next week and put Mike in charge of the service-based schedule. He blinked at the sudden promotion. This about you know. It's about trust, I said. You'll do fine. Make the calls. Don't guess. He slapped my shoulder. I got you. I visited the bank and closed the joint buffer we used for extras. Bills stayed funded, but the soft money was gone. I wrote Erin a clean summary and sent it with a line. No surprises. Access remains for essentials only. No threats. Just the new terrain. She replied an hour later. You're punishing me. No, I wrote. I'm preventing repeat offense. That afternoon, she switched gears again. She showed up at the shop in a dress I hadn't seen in a year, carrying 2 coffees and a bag of donuts like we were courting. Mike took one look and made himself disappear. She set the bag on my desk. Thought you might need sugar. I need consistency. I've been thinking. She perched on the edge of the chair. We went too fast. We can slow down. Maybe counseling. I don't do committees for basic respect. I took the coffee and set it aside. This isn't a misunderstanding. Then help me understand. She leaned forward, eyes shining with effort. Tell me what you need. I already did. I needed truth. You gave me theater. I pointed toward the shop floor. This is my territory. We're not performing here. You want me to beg? Her voice went stiff. I want you to adjust to reality, I said. There's a difference. She looked around the office like it would give her better lines. If you go through with this, you'll regret it. I've regretted tolerating less than I asked for. That ends now. She stood, mask dropping a fraction. You think you're strong. You're just stubborn. I'm decisive. I looked her in the eye. It's a different muscle. She left the donuts. I tossed them in the break room. Mike popped his head in. That seemed constructive? That seemed like someone trying to rewind. Saturday, we're not a VHS. He grinned at the analogy. You're old. I'm precise. I corrected, without smiling. Evening came with silence from Erin and a text from Kara. He emptied his savings to a new account this afternoon. Thought you should know. I took the car he likes. Petty? Maybe. But I'm not financing his next hobby. Not petty, I wrote back. That's a boundary. Saturday morning, I found a note from Erin wedged under the front door. No dramatics. Just cursive and practiced woundedness. I didn't want to end like this. I was confused. He made me feel seen. You stopped seeing me. I read it twice and folded it into a drawer I never opened. Seeing someone starts with the truth. She had chosen compliments over honesty. That's not sight. That's lighting. I changed the locks at noon. I texted her where she could pick up her remaining boxes. Sunday, noon to 2. Kara will be there to witness. No need to humiliate me further, she sent back. It's not humiliation. It's a record, I replied. We will be courteous. We will be done. She arrived at 1 with a neutral face, a manila folder, and a story ready. Kara stood 10 feet away, arms crossed in a way that made it clear she wasn't going to catch anyone when they fell. Erin moved room to room, filling a suitcase. Every time she paused like she wanted to tell a better ending. I didn't give her the opening. She finally dropped the keys we'd arranged and lingered at the doorway. So that's it, she asked. That's clarity, I answered. You don't want to hear my side? Your side came with hotel receipts. I kept my tone level. I heard enough. People make mistakes. She tried one last turn at soft. We could grow from this. We are, I said. Just not together. She left. Kara stayed a minute longer, as if she needed to verify that I wasn't going to call Erin back like a man who can't stand being alone with his decisions. You good? Kara asked. Better than not, I said. You? She shrugged. I'm learning how quiet a house can be when it's not lying. Quiet's underrated. I walked her out. Thanks for the witness. Thanks for the photo drop, she said, almost smiling. You saved me 5 years. Let's only do that once, I said. For both our sakes. Weeks stack fast when the air's clean. I kept the new schedule. Moved the guest room mattress to my room because I sleep fine on simple things. Repainted the living room a shade that doesn't pretend to be anything. I didn't post about it. I didn't tell stories at the shop. I showed up, paid people did the work. Mike tried to set me up with a neighbor of his cousin. I told him I wasn't interested in first dates that felt like interviews. He said, fair. Then he sent me photos of the motorcycle he built in his garage, and I spent the next weekend helping him tune it. That's the kind of noise I like. A month out, I ran into Kara at the farmer's market. She wore sunglasses and the look of someone who has slept. We got coffee and stood under a tent while vendors yelled about peaches. "How's civilian life?" she asked. "Predictable." I sipped. I like knowing the person in my house won't contradict the schedule I set. She gave me a side glance. "You got someone in your house?" "Just a dog," I said. "Found one at the shelter with a face like mine. Calm, judgmental." She laughed, the real kind this time. "Good. Better company." "How's yours?" "Cleaning." She rolled her eyes. The garage had boxes labeled old papers. Inside, junk and an ego. I recycled both. We kept it simple. Friends, not more. We don't need a replacement narrative. We need normal. On the way back to my truck, she touched my elbow. "You did right." I did necessary. I opened her trunk and loaded her groceries because that's what decent men do, not because we were writing a romance novel. Back home, the maple threw shade over the porch. I sat with a beer and the dog and watched nothing happen. That's a better show than drama if you know what peace costs. I heard through the grapevine. Our town's grapevine isn't subtle. That Erin moved back to Ohio to stay with her parents for a while. Friends went quiet around her. People don't like being the last to know they were used as a cover. She bounced between temp jobs, then nothing for a bit. If that sounds like gloating, it isn't. It's a note in a ledger. Actions cost. One evening, my sister stopped by, took in the clean room, the new chair, the absence of damage, and nodded. "You look like you." "I feel like me," I said. Turns out I was under a coat of dust. She had the new truck in the driveway. Compensating. Upgrading. I grinned. I earned it. At work, we landed a fleet contract with a local contractor who'd heard I ran the shop like a clock. Money isn't everything, but it's proof of competence. I hired 2 more techs. Mike stopped calling me old when I doubled his pay by giving him the schedule power I'd tested earlier. He called it my best decision of the year. I didn't disagree. A woman named Lauren walked into the shop one Friday with a flat tire and a kind face. She didn't flirt. She paid, asked if I knew a good trail for weekend running, and left. The next week she came back with a friend's car and an apple pie that tasted like someone cared. We talked in plain lines about schedules, about not tolerating nonsense, and about mornings. I didn't promise anything other than lunch by the lake on Sunday. We ate sandwiches and talked about taxes and dogs. That's my kind of excitement now. People love a comeback story with fireworks. I prefer a quiet exit with receipts. Erin thought she could glide from one life to the next, stacking comfort like furniture. Our house, his attention, my patience. She misread the room. When the mask slipped, I didn't tear it off. I set it down and walked out. The last time I heard from her was a text 6 months later. "I hope you're okay." No question mark. I didn't reply. I don't know a reaction. My final line had been delivered already, in the calm of our dining room, when I told her intent doesn't rebuild and then opened the door. If you're waiting for rage, you've come to the wrong house. I don't do rage. I do boundaries. I do schedules. I do consequences that don't need volume to land. She lost the one thing she used like currency, access. I gained the one thing that doesn't spend, self-respect. The day I finally swapped out the last mug she chose and replaced it with something plain and solid, I stood in my kitchen and smiled at how unremarkable the afternoon was. I took the dog to the park. I texted Lauren a picture of the sky that didn't try to be poetic. She wrote back a simple, "Looks good." It does.